morning, everyone, and welcome to live lunch convos here at Erie's Black Wall Street. I'm thrilled to have you today, Don, and explore the art of storytelling. And so Dawn is from PA Humanities, and we're going to specifically focus on their project called the Voices of History Project, which captures and preserves stories of our African American communities. And this initiative not only keeps their history, the impact and legacy alive, but also ensures that it thrives for future generations. So grab your lunch, settle in, and prepare for an enriching discussion. And feel free to put your questions in the chat for Dawn. We will be answering them throughout the session. And so, Dawn, I just wanted to first start off with just letting you introduce yourself to everyone and telling them your story.
Sure, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. My name is Dawn Frisby Byers. I'm the Senior Director of Programs and Communications for PA Humanities. We are the Humanities Council for the state of Pennsylvania. I am located in Philadelphia, but work throughout the state and excited to bring this program to Erie and to other places. My journey is really my career has been in arts and culture almost exclusively, and particularly in the marketing, communications, and programs area of that. I was never good enough to be a performer or an artist, but always the loved the idea of art and what it does for you and culture. So I decided to make it a career. I've worked for a lot of organizations, notably spent time in New York and worked for the Grammys. I worked for Sesame Street. I worked for the Apollo. And in Philadelphia, I've worked for the famed Mural Arts program. And now I'm at PA Humanities. And I've been here for 5 years.
Wow. So, in your view, what is storytelling, particularly in the humanities, and why is it so vital to our understanding of the world around us and ourselves?
You know, the Humanities Council is not what most people think. Yes, the humanities are subjects that you study in school, but really what they are in communities is a way that we connect with each others as humans. Our tagline is we put the human connection in the word humanities. So this storytelling project is a perfect example of that. Everyone has a story. Every person has a family, and there's a history, and there's information that is unknown to most, but important to you. And it's a way of connecting to build bridges against to defend against some of the, how can we say it, negativity that spews in our state and in our country. So this storytelling project is just a way to let people share their history and understand someone else's.
Wow. And so let's talk a little bit more about your specific project, the Voices of History Project. What sparked its inception and what is the primary goal of that?
You know, I've had this idea for years, and I'm beyond thrilled that we are finally getting there. It's like finally seeing your child being born. This is where I am. So Voices of History was inspired by the works of August Wilson. I am a huge fan of the playwright August Wilson, Philadelphia native, Pittsburgh son, who wrote 10 plays, the Century Cycle plays, about Black life in Pittsburgh in the 20th century. And his 10 plays are each set in a different decade.
Mhm.
So it was fitting that we started this project in Pittsburgh, but thrilled to be moving it to Erie. So this Voices of History is specifically asking Black people, Black Americans, to share a story about their family. a particular memory, a particular object, that's something that defines your family. And we're looking for at stories from everyday people. So much is talked about the first person who did this, or as I was watching Barack Obama last night, the first Black president, or the first this. And their stories are amazing and we should be proud of them. But your personal stories are equally amazing and should be proud of them. And so this is a way to elevate stories of everyday people that are the backbone of our society.
I completely agree. We've had several conversations here with you here at Erie's Black Wall Street about a similar, very, very similar project that we wanted to do. And we've had in the works for the last couple of years. But when we found out that you were trying to do this, we're like, this is the perfect opportunity for us to collaborate on this effort
Yeah.
and to really make an even larger impact than we would on our own. And so I thank you and everyone at PA Humanities for considering Erie's Black Wall Street in this endeavor. So you and I had talked about a particular story that you got in your Pittsburgh session about a young man who is a journalist. Could you just share a little bit about the impact of that story and how he became a journalist?
Yes, yes. So we're collecting individual stories, and you never know what you're going to get. And one of our participants gave this great story that when he was a young boy, 5 or 6 years old, his family would visit his paternal grandmother every couple of weeks because she had a recent widow, and she lived in the country in Virginia. And while his cousins and siblings were out playing in the woods and having a grand old time, he would sit in his grandmother's kitchen and tell her his stories from a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old point of view. He's not realizing how busy she was and how busy she had to have been. There was no running water in this house, and she had to, cooked everything from scratch, and she had cleaning and all that stuff to do. But she would stop what she was doing to listen to his stories and made him feel important and made him feel that his stories were important. And he credits that with becoming a journalist, years later, because he always felt that his stories were important and therefore other people's stories were important too. So it just that influence is what made his life, his choice of life. And I'm going to share one more just to give you type of an example. We just collected this story last week. It was a woman who was one of the first Black female cops in Pittsburgh, and after had a successful couple of years in a Black neighborhood as a cop. This is the 1970s. She was transferred to an all-white area and and experienced true racism on the job. And no one wanted to partner with her. And no one wanted to give her an assignment or even give her a chance. And she talked eloquently about one older gentleman who had never spoken to her in her couple of months there, saved her. He
Wow.
realized what was going on, and he stepped up and he said, "I'll be your partner," and thus saved her career. And she had a 30-year career as a cop in Pittsburgh.
Wow. Wow. It's so important to have those little those little pieces of information that can really change a trajectory of someone's life. Having the information of just being able to have a kid sit there and talk to you. And sometimes we don't recognize how valuable that is. I know
Exactly.
I have a 4-year-old who's very feisty and sassy, but very intelligent. And to listen to some of those stories that she tells me, I'm like, oh, she has ideas for fashion and she has ideas for decorations and stuff like that. But even listening to those, like I've crafted a whole party for her birthday around just listening to what she likes and what she needs. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, the stories have been fascinating, and I can't wait to hear some of the stories from people from Erie.
So, what led to you guys wanting to bring this project to Erie? And like, what's fast is are there any specific aspects of Erie's community and history you're looking to highlight, or is it just everybody's individual story as is?
Well, yes, and so first of all, we are doing Voices of History in 6 cities across the state, and Erie is our second stop. Pittsburgh was our first, with the goal of collecting 125, 150 stories from across the state. So you will be part of a larger contingent, and everyone's stories will will be different because everyone's family is different, but I am looking to celebrate the differences as well as the sameness because we are all African Americans have we're not a monolith. Everybody has a different experience, but some of our experiences relate to others. So we're very excited about Erie. We One of the themes in August Wilson's work is about the Great Migration. And we know that the Great Migration story in Erie is particular to
Oh
Erie.
yeah, very.
So I'm not looking just for stories about the migration, but I know it will come up.
Mhm.
So we're thrilled to get that perspective, which is very different from from Pittsburgh and will be very different from the eastern part of the state because in addition to Pittsburgh and Erie, we will be collecting stories in Scranton,
Mhm.
in York, at State College at Penn State, because I'm very curious to see a youth perspective to this, and then finally in Philadelphia. So those stories will all be different because everyone had different experiences.
What methods do you use to gather and preserve the stories of Black people here? And how do you ensure that the narratives are accurately and respectfully represented?
So, that's a great question. So we start with story circles. So we go into a town, we'll go into Erie, and we will publicly announce, hey, come join us for a story circle. And at this point, it is a traditional story circle. We are sitting in a circle, and everyone gets between 5 and 6 minutes to share a particular story. So we ask you to come with an idea in mind. We're not necessarily looking for your family history, but a particular story that you can share that sheds light on you, your family, and your experiences. And after everyone tells their story, we pause for reflection. We pause for questions. Maybe you didn't explain something, or we want to know a little bit more about this part and not that part. And then as we go around the circle, we are recording these, but just for archival purposes. And then the team, we all sit around afterwards, and then we decide which stories we want to professionally record. Unfortunately, we can't record every story, but which ones spoke to us, which ones we think will speak to many people, and making sure we get a breadth, a variety of types of story. And then we will set up a professional story recording session that will include lights and camera action, and ask you at that point if you are selected to bring any photographs and or objects to enhance your story.
Hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. So when they bring these items, are you all keeping the items or are they going back with them? Can you explain that?
We will take photos and scan them. We will not hold on to your items. These are your family items. Uh, Photos are a great way to tell stories. So the final project will be much more like a documentary style.
Mhm.
Uh, the person will be talking, and as they say, I remember playing in my grandmother's backyard, then a photo of the grandmother will come up that you will have provided, or a photo of the house will come up. And then we'll go back to what you're saying. And so we're just looking for visual aspects to enhance a story. And of course, we will share final edits before we send it out into the world.
So when are you looking to have this project completed by?
Well, we'd love to do, we plan to do Erie in October.
Okay.
We are talking about dates to do the actual story circles in October, and then do the final recording sometime shortly thereafter, the first couple of weeks in November. The whole project is scheduled to be completed June of next year.
Wow. Okay.
So we'll be moving from city to city.
Okay. Have you faced any challenges? Because I always like to give both sides of things, but have you faced any
Oh,
challenges in this process, and what are you doing to combat them, or how have you overcome?
yeah, well, there's always been challenges. We've learned. You live and you learn, and you make adjustments. Some people are eager to share their stories. Some people are a little shy and are prepared not to be personal in their stories. There's always the object of funding. We've had some challenges with funding, but thanks to Erie Insurance and the Heinz Foundation, uh, this project is funded for Erie and for Pittsburgh. And some of the other challenges, I've had this happen twice. People came and shared their story, and we said, that's one of the stories you want to record. And they thought about it, and then they said no. And that's their right. So, but we try to make you feel as comfortable as possible.
It's just like having a conversation.
It is.
Um, One of the things that I like to do and that I've done in my personal life is I actually recorded my parents and
Mm,
conversations that we've had. I have a great uncle, who is in his 80s. And just being able to hear some of his stories, I went down to visit him this year, hadn't seen him in over a decade. And so I said, do you mind if I just put my camera up just to record us the entire
uh-huh.
time sitting here? And he's like, yeah, I don't mind. And the amount of information that I got about our family history was
Yes.
mind boggling. And it's something now that I can pass down to my children, who may not get to meet him or other family members, but can know that we have this rich history. And so I thought that that was a beautiful project. I did that same thing also for my dad, and he's no longer with us, but I still have a YouTube video to this day where I can go back and hear his stories, hear the things that he wants for each one of our family members, and I can hear his voice, I can see him in action, and
Yeah.
it is a wonderful keepsake to have, to be able to pass that memory through generations to come. So
That
I
is lovely.
thank you.
And
Thank
and and you know, we kicked off this project. Our big kickoff, public kickoff, was in Pittsburgh, and we brought in the author Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote The Warmth of Other Suns, to give a talk about the power of stories and why stories are so important. And it was a fascinating conversation that she had. First of all kudos to her, because she spent 11 years researching that book and 4 years of writing it. And it shows the amount of time that she took in the researching of stories. But what she said in her conversation, is we spend as a generation, as a country, we spend so much time um, caring about what's happening in celebrities' lives. We
you.
should spend the same care and time of with our own family and our own ancestors, because they are the celebrities. They are the reason that we're all here.
Mhm.
Somebody fed you, somebody cared about you, somebody survived some stuff that you don't even know about in order for you to be here. So to celebrate the celebrities, your ancestors in your own family. And she suggested that people do exactly what you said. Every time they are with someone of an older generation, get those stories and pull out that phone and record those stories because for other generations, because once they're gone.
Right, absolutely. So we're getting down to the end here, but I'd actually like to hear a personal story from you. I know I didn't send that question to you, but just wanted to get a personal one of your stories, something that was very impactful in your life.
You know, I I've been thinking about this because as you're hearing other people's stories, so of course you're going to think about your own. So I think, and there's so many, but I think, I grew up in Philadelphia, youngest of two girls with a father who was a longshoreman and a very hard worker. And so he wasn't always home all the time. But my father was very gregarious, loved us and loved to be involved in our lives. But the specialness that he would do, maybe about 5 times a year, he would get up on a Sunday morning and after working all day on Saturday and say, "It's omelet day." He would yell it in the house. And my father was an amazing cook, but very traditional. My mother did most of the cooking. And he made the single best omelets I've ever had. And he had a special pan that you could only use for omelets. And he would make custom omelets for all of us. So what do you want in yours? What do you want in yours? And we would they were the best days. And I now not only live in the house I grew up in, I took it over when my parents passed on, but I kept that omelet pan. And I have that omelet pan in the back in my cabinet and bring it out a couple times a year and make an omelet. And it is one of the few things I can make. I can make an omelet because after years of watching him, I know how to make an omelet.
Wow. So what was in your omelet as a child?
Well, I was a very picky eater, so I just wanted cheese.
Just cheese. Okay. I thank you for sharing your story with me. It is so important that we have these conversations, that we are able to pass our stories down from generation to generation, because a lot of times, especially here in Erie, Erie has been robust with Black history and stories and Black impact. And a lot of times, what has happened is that information has died with that person,
Yes.
or it has been paved over, the buildings have been paved over, and there's new buildings there. And so we want to make sure that we are preserving Erie's culture, Erie's beautiful, diverse culture here. And so having this project come to Erie is so important to us. Here at Erie's Black Wall Street, we are extremely excited about this project, this partnership. And so we want the community to get involved. And
Yes.
so how can they get involved?
Well, uh, we're excited too, and we can't wait to do this. So on our website, which is pahumanities.org, if you go to pahumanities.org and /voices, you will see the Voices of History project page. And there is a link to click on for to say that you're interested in telling your story. I don't you don't have to we ask for a little bit about what your story is going to be about, but you don't have to stick with that. We will we're just seeing gauging the interest in Erie, but we are going to have two public story circles in October and we will put it up on the website when we have confirmed the date and the exact location. And then people can come and Kyra, you and your group will get the word out to as many people as possible who want to come and share their story in the story circle. And then after the story circles are over, we will select the number of stories, people to contact them again and see if they're willing to really have them recorded. Because once these stories are recorded, this is something I didn't mention. Once these stories are recorded, from across the state, they will go into a permanent digital archive. It will be a permanent archive that will be searchable by name, by place, by story type. And this project is the first of its kind, it endeavors to tell history and the story of Black Pennsylvanians from the 20th century.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So we are encouraging as many people as possible to sign up for this project. We want the stories of Erie to be told. Oftentimes, Erie is looked over, but Erie has a lot of beautiful people and beautiful families and stories that need to be told to our wider audience as a community, as the state. And so we just want people to get involved. So we will be posting some signups, posts all throughout our social media over the next month. And I don't see any questions in the chat. So I will just encourage folks to go to pahumanities.org/voices to find out more information, to sign up, to have your story be heard. And then also join us in our future live lunch convos. The next one that we have coming up is actually in September, and it is for the Erie Horror Fest. So we are wanting to make sure that we are getting information from all sectors here in Erie and different things that we may not be used to or different outside entities. We just want to make sure that we are sharing information, that we're sharing resources, that we're open for collaboration. And so we thank you for coming and joining us I was going to say this afternoon, but it is this afternoon. And we invite you back. And once again, please go to pahumanities.org/voices. And thank you, Dawn, so much for your time today.
Thank you. We can't wait to come to Erie and hear your stories.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.